What's most exciting to me is I think Google is so well positioned to help remove as much of that friction and burden as possible for people who are like trying to go into this next era of building. And I think about AI Studio's responsibility in this, similar to like what YouTube did for creators. I think AI Studio can do for software to like let everyone have the means to not just build software, but actually like distribute it to the world and monetize it and like build a business around it. I don't think that's like fully in the zeitgeist yet, that like that's going to be possible and that's what the world is going to look like. But I very much believe that we will, very similar to like creators in YouTube and how the platform has enabled so many folks to like have a voice. I think AI Studio, hopefully, if we do all the things right, will sort of enable folks to do that with software.
Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Of course.
As soon as I sat down, I joked that I feel like I see your presence on Twitter is so massive that I'm just so used to every day. Whenever I open up my Twitter feed, you're like all over it every day, and you're a real person.
I'm a real person. Unfortunately, I don't just exist on the internet. Life would be probably easier if that was the case. But
how about you tell our audience, even though they're going to see you, you're going to be super familiar with you. Tell us a little bit about what you do here at Google.
Yeah, that's a great question. At DeepMind, I lead the developer platform team focused on the Gemini API, AI Studio, and another product called Kaggle. So really focused on, sort of not in a tongue-in-cheek way, sort of bringing the GDM mission to life, which is like both building AI responsibly and then also actually bring it to our customers through our products. So mostly focused on the developer side of the product house, and then helping make sure we have great Gemini models.
Obviously, we're at I.O. to talk about the announcements today and the broader developer space, but I think we need to touch a bit about your background. I think it's super fascinating. NASA, OpenAI, like, did you ever rest? You've always just been super, I guess, into, again, the AI space and building, I guess, space. So tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, that's I've gotten lucky that I can do a bunch of things that are really fun. I get paid to do things that I enjoy. It's the best job in the world. And yeah, before Google was at OpenAI, I joined when it was a small 200-person startup, nonprofit research lab building AI models, and sort of seeing, the company that it is today is really cool to sort of see the evolution that they've gone through. Before that was at another startup doing machine learning and deep learning for digital pathology. Before that was a software engineer and a machine learning engineer at Apple, and then I started my career at NASA doing like early reinforcement learning models for the NASA Viper lunar mission, which was super cool. So got to work on all that. And it is like, in hindsight, yeah, I've been doing AI stuff, but not super obvious. I think the disjointed sort of journey always when you're in the seat, and then it looks more coherent when you sort of step back from a 10,000 foot view 10 years later. It definitely does.
Do you think you ever had a moment in your journey where you were like, oh, actually, AI is what I'm the most interested in and what I'm going to kind of focus my attention into?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think earlier in my career, it was always just like it was a piece of technology. And so I think the framing was like, oh, you could be sort of you were maybe an engineer and you were doing AI stuff, or you were an engineer and you were doing like back-end engineering stuff, or you were an engineer and you were doing front-end engineering stuff. So it was sort of like a engineering discipline almost, and obviously a research discipline as well. And I was looking at it more from an engineering perspective. And it always it seemed like the most interesting. So I feel like I just naturally gravitated towards doing that. And then it didn't feel like a conscious effort, though. It didn't feel, even when I joined OpenAI, I wasn't like, oh, AI is clearly the thing. I should go and do that, because I still think at that point the AI moment had not sort of like encompassed the world in the way that it has now. And so it was still like sort of AI 2.0 where, it's just a bunch of like tools behind the scenes powering product experiences that we were all using. And to see what it's become now, I think is very fascinating.
Do you think that any of that like initial using AI more of a tool, because it wasn't like, okay, I have to use AI, it's this like super trendy thing and apparently I'm gonna get a ton of ROI, let me learn this thing or let me like invest in this thing. You just started generally using it as a way to get results in your role. Do you think that's kind of impacted what you do now? Because I feel like that's exactly what your position kind of is.
I definitely think it keeps me more grounded because I have the perspective of like this stuff didn't used to work, and I was like training computer vision models for the Apple Store 8 years ago, and sort of like the level of complexity and just like making. I think it gives me a lot more empathy actually because it was so hard to train models to just do even one thing and have it work reliably well. And I think now if you look at like what are developers able to do, like it's mind blowing that you could just like zero shot an app and like actually go and solve to like a reasonably high degree of production quality so many problems that it like my lived experience, it would have taken like me and an entire team and weeks and months of engineering work and like model iterations just to solve this like very narrow problem. And the models just like do that out of the box. And I think actually the thing that I also keep coming back to is like how empowering that is, because like you think that you look at the world and the world doesn't have, every company is not a large company with tons of resources and lots of money and researchers and all that stuff. And so now the like random business owner who wants to solve some problem can just like go to these models and ask them to solve the problem. And it works, which is like really, really cool. And I don't think something that I try to reflect back on that as much as I can, because like it is the point of why we're doing this.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because I feel like I kind of got that vibe from you even before actually meeting you, from just your presence online. I've seen people just be like, hey, this isn't working, and like tag you, and then somehow you have enough bandwidth to answer basically, I feel like almost an endless amount of requests online. And I feel like, is that purposely done? You prioritize that to build that sense of community and help as many people, I guess, make sense of this as you can?
I think I just have too much of this like DNA of being a customer service agent inside of me. I think that really is like part of it. I think the other angle of it is it just like helps me do my job is like help make sure that we're building the right product for all of our developer stuff inside of DeepMind. And I think the way to do that is by seeing what people's reaction to our technology is, what the rough edges are. And I also think it's partially an intentional strategy because like Google's a very large place. There's lots of people in Google. I think sometimes it's, you can hit the rough edges, and I've hit this myself as a Google user of sort of like, it's a big place. There's many people who have responsibility. And so I think being able to just cut through that to be like, user has a problem,
right.
Fix the problem for the user, has just a massive amount of alpha, I think, for us as Google and for our team specifically as well. So try to do as much as possible. The challenge is I don't scale infinitely. And so I think the volume of people who have things that they want us to make better, I think, is very high. And I love the feedback and comments, but trying to find balance of all the other things that we have to do. So.
No, but I think it's working in a really positive way, because I think you've developed a really, really strong and healthy developer community. And obviously, some of that is just Google's doing. Google's had that. But also, you really do help feed that. And even today at the keynote, I love coming to Google I/O because it'll be like the nerdiest announcement ever. And like you'll just hear like, wow, from like the developer.
We were talking about this backstage. Paige announced, being able to build native Android apps in AI Studio.
Yes.
And she was like, and it's using Kotlin. And I have my sort of, feedback to the script, which is, I think for a lot of developers who don't use Android, they don't know why. Kotlin's incredible because you can actually like natively target all of these different like devices. So if you actually, the same code that you use for your Android app can also be used for Android XR glasses application or a watch application or whatever. So it's like really powerful to use Kotlin. Clearly, there was someone in the audience who knew why they were excited about Kotlin. There was the loudest cheer, and I was talking to the Sam from the Play Store team, and he was poking fun at that as well. 40%, I think, of developers at I/O are Android developers. So super strong community. I'm glad we landed native Android apps for them. I think it's going to be tons of fun. And again, Paige and I were talking like neither of us had actually ever built an Android app in AI Studio until this experience. So like just being able to like actually deliver on this mission of like letting more people build stuff in the Google ecosystem who like wouldn't have, like I was probably never going to build an Android app unless something happened. Yeah. And I don't think Paige ever was. And so it's been fun to like actually see that democratization happen.
Now it's time for a word from this week's sponsor, Deal. Have you ever loved your HR, IT, or payroll software? Yeah, didn't think so. Me neither. Most platforms are stitched together, so when they add AI, there's not much it can do. Deal rebuilt the entire global workforce stack from the foundation up. One AI native platform for HR, IT, and payroll. Built in-house, not white labeled. And because it's one system, AI inside Deal can actually do real work. It manages onboarding, payroll, compliance, and approvals, following your policies, workflows, and risk thresholds. You can hire, manage, and pay anyone, anywhere, without juggling tools, logins, or manual handoffs. AI agents take care of the repetitive work, while over 2,000 local experts in 130 countries keep everything compliant. From 5 people to 50,000, Deal scales as you grow. It just works, and you'll actually like using it. We use it here at the Deep View so we can confirm how good it is. See how global work runs when AI is built into the system. Book a demo at del.com/deepview. That's del.com/deepview. We thank Deal for their support of the Deep View. And now, back to the show.
Yeah, let's talk a bit about, I guess, those announcements from today. Some of the ones that stood out the most to me, again, upgrades to AI Studio and also Antigravity expansion.
Yeah.
So how about, you can say it better than I can. You tell me a bit about them.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much news to cover.
Yeah.
We could spend an hour just talking about all the news, but
Exactly.
I think
That's why I narrowed it down to those 2 buckets and possibly the highlights of even those 2 buckets.
yeah. I think it would be remiss not to mention 3.5 Flash.
Yes.
The best model we've ever launched as Google. It's the most capable AI model available to developers at a price and I think like latency that makes it really competitive and sort of puts it in a really, I think, a class of its own is how I was describing it to someone earlier today. So that's really exciting. And then Gemini Omni. So being able to bring together a bunch of our sort of native multimodality input and output capabilities, like truly having a model that can take in anything and create any output is really, really exciting. And I think starting with it being actually like really good at video editing, I think is the hero use case. So Nano Banana for video, I think is the way that the team is describing sort of the first iteration of the Gemini Omni model. So that's on the model side. And I have to talk about that because I think the model is the product in many ways. Like I think there's the developer ecosystem matters, but it is sort of scaffolding around having a great model.
I like that you say that because I feel like a lot of times when it comes to like any big model announcement, and again, I feel like I'm covering a new one from all the players like every week, multiple times a week. But I feel like they're usually geared towards like, or trying to be marketed towards just regular consumers. So oftentimes it could get lost in translation. Like, oh, okay, like now my chatbot is smarter and faster, but it's like, no, actually for developers or people who are actually using these models more than beyond the chatbot, it actually makes significant leaps in differences, right?
It does, yeah. And I think the most beautiful thing is for the developer ecosystem. There's some great quote that I saw on X, which was talking about sort of every time. I think it was from Gary Tan or somebody from YC. Every time there's a new model launch, there's a whole class of these startups that weren't possible before that become possible. And I think that is like the most exciting thing to me is like all of these new businesses and these new problems that people can solve like are now actually in scope of what can be solved. So yeah, I think it's fun. Like hopefully Flash does that for people. I think Omni does it for people. We saw it with Nano Banana. Like Nano Banana just like helped all of these businesses that weren't otherwise like. I've talked to maybe like 20 virtual try-on companies who are doing something in fashion or something like that. And like they just, it was a really difficult business before and now they're using Nano Banana and their users love it and they think it's the best experience ever. And I think we're going to see something very similar for Omni, which is super exciting.
Again, I think that's cool because when users, and I think there's just so much AI every day coming out everyone that like as a general consumer, you could be like, okay, I guess like what, fine, this is cool. Like then it's another image model. But to your point, people are using them. That's just like the foundation almost. People are building on them to make way more specific or advanced or tailored things that are actually extremely helpful for people. Yeah.
100%. And I think to answer the other part of your question, speaking of building on top of things, I think the Antigravity team, I think has been doing a ton of work behind the scenes over the last probably like 6 months in order to sort of set up this IO. And I think for folks who haven't watched the live stream yet, the sort of theme of IO is it was agents. I think it was agents everywhere, agents powering so many new product experiences across Google, and sort of agents in Google Search, and agents in the Gemini app with Project, with Gemini Spark, and so much other stuff. The highlights from an anti-gravity perspective, I think, is twofold. A, to your point, the ecosystem. I think they've landed a bunch of new product experiences across the entire developer stack. So if you want a managed agent interface, anti-gravity has it. If you want to sort of continue to use the IDE experience, they have it. If you want to use anti-gravity in the CLI, they have it. If you want an SDK to sort of spin your own agents experience, they have it. If you want an API with managed agent service, in the Gemini API, we have the anti-gravity agent there, and so many other places. So anti-gravity everywhere, I think, is like one theme of this. The other theme is, and it's related to that anti-gravity everywhere story, is anti-gravity actually powering much more than just their own product. And I think it's really interesting to see this. And I had this conversation with Sundar probably like a year and a half ago, which was just around like just the observation, the reflection about historically Google hasn't had this like through line of all of our products. And Gemini became that through line. Literally, like every Google product has Gemini baked in and sort of infused in some way, which is really exciting. And I think it's cool to see actually anti-gravity sort of become another one of those through lines. Like as all of these products turn the corner to become natively agentic products, you see search, and you see workspace, and you see the Gemini app, and you see our developer platform sort of all building around the anti-gravity agent harness, which is really cool. And it means these teams can move ultimately from like an end user perspective. Google builds better products because we sort of have this foundational layer to build on top of, which is awesome. So it was fun to see that.
Yeah, and like I guess table set with people listening, Antigravity is a really cool platform that we're gonna water it down a ton, and you could actually elaborate. But basically, anybody can create an application. You could talk to it, you could type, and it could happen super quickly. I love watching like videos online on YouTube of like, I'm going to create an app using anti-gravity in like 5 minutes. And it's really neat. You would describe it that way too. I did an okay job.
I'm too close to the sun on this because I see we spend a lot of time talking about how to make sure we position these correctly to folks.
Please,
I think that's a great description. I think they're like they have a bunch of different taglines. I think one of them is like mission control for agents, which I really like. So like as you try to manage sort of agents doing work on your behalf, and actually it doesn't even have to be for coding work. If you want to do knowledge work even, it's connected to a bunch of the Google ecosystem and can help you do that stuff. And we're seeing like people, take meeting notes, put it in anti-gravity, summarize the feedback, and then like kick off, agents to go and do X, Y, and Z on their behalf. So I personally like mission control for agents. I feel like it's a great tagline.
I'm curious because I love how I'm always fascinated about the Google developer ecosystem, because when I hear something like that, and maybe I'm just too protective of my own job, but I feel like my first thought would be that there would be backslash from developers, or it'd be like, this is almost anybody could build an app now, or anybody could use this, or it's like almost making it too accessible. What's the point of me? But it's the exact opposite. I feel like developers are the most excited about it.
Yeah.
Would love to know from why you think that is. Is it just because they're also able to move just that much faster too? Like, I feel like there's been such an overwhelmingly positive response. At least that's my perception of it. So.
No, I think you're spot on. It is interesting. I do think the perception has been super positive from the developer ecosystem. I think, obviously there's been some fumbles over the last, few years. So it's been a path to get to this point. But I actually think Andrej Karpathy had a really great framing of this, which is vibe code, and it was sort of describing the difference between vibe coding and sort of agentic engineering, which I think is sort of what developers do. Vibe coding is sort of bringing the floor up so that everybody has the ability to build something. Agentic engineering is sort of like when you are working with like production grade code bases and like you're writing software, developing software for a living, it's your full-time job. That's sort of where agentic engineering comes in. And I actually think they're like distinctly different. It is the same underlying capability that's enabling them, but sort of the way the audience, the way you go after solving those problems, I think is actually distinctly different. And I think actually one good example of this, back to the sort of definitions of products, I think is like AI Studio versus anti-gravity. And I think anti-gravity is sort of going after this this sort of like agentic engineering. Like you should be able to go into a 1,000,000-line code base with anti-gravity and like go and make a bunch of intelligent updates, and they have sort of the guardrails to make sure you do that in a way that's like safe for your code, et cetera, doesn't cause production outages. And I think on the other end of the spectrum, AI Studio, I think we're trying to help you sort of go from zero to like a fully provisioned app built inside the Google ecosystem without ever actually even having to see any code. And it's very vibe coding. Like you wouldn't sort of take that thing and then like, build your entire, $1 trillion business on top of it, at least initially. And I think that the tension, I think, for the ecosystem is in the sort of fluidity between those different personas.
Yeah.
And I think there's lots of like rough edges. And like one of the things, again, that we're trying to do to sort of remove those rough edges, like very simply, one example is like letting people move between products. And so you could start building something in AI Studio, realize that, maybe I do need to be more serious about this and like sort of bring the agentic engineering principles in order to like keep scaling this up. You can one click export it into anti-gravity and sort of like continue that development locally, which is exciting, and hopefully lots of developers will do.
Yeah, I feel like you're in the weeds yourself too, which is why I enjoy, or why I was looking forward to this conversation, why I enjoy listening to your takes on this too, because I feel like you've always kept a relatively chill demeanor whenever you're probed or asked questions like, will it take over jobs? Like, will developers still be needed? Like, what's the future of software engineering? Or you usually have at least my take is a generally like calm approach to that, and would love to know what kind of fuels that from your end.
That's a good question. I think to your point about like being close, there's many layers to this. I think one is like not living in the Bay Area. Historically, I haven't lived in the Bay Area, and I think it's sort of easy to. There's just so much. There's like it's the eye of the hurricane is what I describe it as, and there's just so much happening, and there's so much exciting stuff happening. But I think it is easy to sort of get lost in the fact that most of the world, most developers, if you sort of go other places, like maybe haven't used this technology before, maybe aren't fully bought in, and sort of I think it's helpful to have that perspective. So try to maintain that perspective as much as possible and spend time with people who are building in all different types of ecosystems, especially now because I do live in the Bay Area, new Bay Area resident. I think the other piece of it too is like, I do think Google has there's many things about Google's mission that I take super seriously. And I think DeepMind and Google have this sort of stewardship position in the ecosystem, and making sure people understand the technology, can like actually build on top of it, are excited about the direction that we're going, are participants in the conversation. Like I think we have such an important obligation to make sure that happens. And so I try to take that as seriously as possible because it feels important to me.
Yeah. Again, I feel like with the way that you interact with people and the way that, again, even people are reacting to these products, that importance is felt throughout the developer community in a really neat way. What do you think comes next? Like, where do you even go from now, right? Like, it's like, okay, so you could build an app from using your voice. And again, I love watching those clips. And it's like, oh, in 5 minutes, we have like this super interactive, cool website kind of thing going on. What, like, is there something? Is it just quicker? Is it speed? Like, I'm like, what else? Where else do we scale from here?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think about this all the time because it feels there's this double-edged sword of like, we've made so much progress and yet there's so much more to do. And this I/O feels like that, which is like obviously tons of progress, a bunch of amazing launches, but it really is like, it's actually like the start of a product roadmap. It's like it's not the end of this roadmap for us. And as far as like people building apps, I think the exciting thing is like, and there's a spectrum of this, but we want to let you actually go from like, the sort of internal, it's half a joke, half serious, but it's like prompt to profitable company. Like we want to let you like actually go the next set of milestones in building something. I think if for folks who have like tried to build something before, actually the software bit is obviously important and has historically been the gate to make it so that you could build something if you're trying to build software products. But that will be solved. So like the ability to create software, I think like as the models continue to get better, like will be something that is like fully within everyone's ability, like hopefully within the next like 12 to 18 months as all the products and models continue to develop. but there are many challenges to go and actually build a business that are sort of have nothing to do with the creation of software. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you talk to users? How do you sort of make sure you're forecasting the right stuff? How do you, do customer support? What's the right pricing? How do you do marketing? There's like N other things that I'm sure I haven't even mentioned. And what's most exciting to me is I think Google is so well positioned to help remove as much of that friction and burden as possible for people who are like trying to go into this next era of building. And I think about AI Studio's responsibility in this, similar to like what YouTube did for creators. I think AI Studio can do for software to like let everyone have the means to not just build software, but actually like distribute it to the world and monetize it and like build a business around it. And I think I don't think that's like fully in the zeitgeist yet, that like that's going to be possible and that's what the world is going to look like. But I very much believe that we will very similar to like creators and YouTube and how the platform has enabled so many folks to like have a voice. I think AI Studio will hopefully, if we do all the things right, will sort of enable folks to do that with software.
I really like that analogy because I feel like it really highlights what we were talking about earlier. Like, why do you not feel like super threatened about jobs and stuff? It's like, yes, everybody has a camera in their pocket and anybody could, set up things and post and it's easier than ever. But you don't see everybody becoming like, a YouTuber with millions of followers and having a successful business from it.
But some will, which is also important.
Exactly.
I think I love YouTube because you have this sort of, it's a great example. And obviously YouTube is like the most successful version of this analogy, but like you have the ends of the spectrum. You have the Mr. Beast, and then you have the person who's like, I'm just uploading a video to YouTube so I can send it to my mom so she can really easily see it or something like that. It's like a Google Drive video sharing. And I think that was maybe more common in the original heyday, or like not heyday of YouTube, but like early days of YouTube when it was when there weren't other video platforms that you could do like drive sharing like things with. But yeah, it's exciting. I feel like if we can pull that off, it will like create so much opportunity for folks who want to be able to create businesses around software, who again otherwise wouldn't have been able to.
So can I ask you, like, when you're like, what I'm imagining, everybody sitting in like a round table in an exec room, like, what are we building next? Which obviously doesn't happen that way, but let's just say when you all just like sit around and you're brainstorming, like, to your point, there's AI could be applied, used, tailored to basically every software part of the pipeline, building, executing, all that, but also every industry, every role. Do you kind of just start tackling like the foundation and kind of build out from there? Or like, do you have to think about all these specific things? Because there's too much there.
There is too much. I mean, I think this is like the sort of, in some sense, rephrasing what you said, is like the paralysis of all the opportunity, which I think is a really interesting thing that I think folks are grappling with now, which is like, and I feel this way when I work on personal projects. I'm like, I could do anything now. And I'm like, so I have to be, I'm like even more thoughtful about like, what is that next personal project I should take on? Because like, I could basically build anything I want. And I think I feel that way for our team. And I think the lens that I look at this through is like, what is the thing that we can uniquely do? And I feel like there's obviously many things that Google could do, but like, what should we do? What do we actually have an obligation to build for our customers? Where do we have a bunch of infrastructure or a competitive advantage that sort of makes it easier for us to build these things? And I feel like AI Studio is like a beautiful manifestation of the story of like the things that are unique about building this type of product. Like, it really feels like a product that should be built inside of Google. And we're trying to build it in our, like, obviously there's other people building products like AI Studio in some sense in the ecosystem, but I think our the way that we see it is like building the version of this product that Google should be building. And that means in a lot of cases, and maybe you saw this with Workspace and Android today, but like, how do we give you a step into these other parts of the Google ecosystem that like we can uniquely create this connection point with, that like a team outside of Google, they don't sit next to the Android team and they don't sit next to the cloud team. And so we can do all these unique things. And we're going to keep going in that direction of like help. Google has such a vast ecosystem.
Yeah.
How can AI Studio be sort of a window into a bunch of the opportunity happening across the Google ecosystem?
The cool thing too is when you put together or launch a really high quality, or to your point, like a product that is solving an actual gap, I feel like the natural, I guess, progress of it is that there's going to be offshoot applications that you probably couldn't have predicted. Like what I'm thinking of right now, and again, correcting on the details, anti-gravity is being now used in search, right? Just to create like those really neat like visuals where like they're really like mini apps almost, like mini games, or to better solve your question. I'm sure when you started building or anti-gravity, you didn't think of like, oh, this is like the use case that we're trying to solve, but then it was like, oh, this could actually work and do that really well too.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And I think anti-gravity is sort of powering just being this agentic layer for everything. I think the best case, and I don't know how ambitious folks were thinking about it originally, but like the best case actually is like search becomes that customer, because like search has such a high bar of, they have to serve billions of customers and they have to do it very fast and in an efficient way, et cetera, et cetera. So it's almost like the ultimate success case is that search goes and adopts whatever the piece of technology is because they have such a high bar. And I feel like that, is happening with anti-gravity, which is really cool to see.
I think it must have been a podcast clip or something I heard you on, or something you said at one point.
A whisper in the wind, somewhere, a billboard.
Something, yeah. It must have, maybe through osmosis. I got like that you said
It's
that.
probably osmosis. Spent a lot of my time just sending osmosis out into the ecosystem.
Waves. Yeah, but you said something that was really neat. It was kind of, again, I'm going to butcher it, blame the osmosis transmission waves, but that you're kind of building, at Google, you're building tech or AI solutions or products that you could then use to build more for Google itself. It's like a fulfilling, and I thought that was super neat because I was like, I wouldn't think about it that way, but in a way, you're almost like catering to your own needs, right, and your own team's needs to produce more.
Yeah. I think there's great. Actually, the anti-gravity harness story is a great example of this. I think we're announcing anti-gravity 2.0 to the world today, but actually like a lot of the flywheel that's been happening is like Googlers across all of the vast number of different products and business areas inside of Google using anti-gravity to actually like accelerate their own product stuff. We have the same thing for AI Studio. Like it's like 50% of the UX folks inside of Google use Google AI Studio to like build UX prototypes and mock-ups of the different things that they want. And actually, like Gemini is the other example of this. Like we as a company, are so invested in Gemini because not only is it foundational in all of our products, but like it helps us build a better version of all the products and of Gemini itself. And so those flywheels are like the most. If you can find that, that's like the chef's kiss, the most natural thing that you could possibly have is the product helps you in building the product. You end up building a better product. Both for yourself and for customers.
Are you ever tempted to be like, well, actually, there's this like third-party product that could do this thing really well too. Like, why don't we just like, use that and like kind of go elsewhere? Or do you always kind of have the mindset of like, we build in-house, like we could do it better?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely tension with that. I think there's a lot of infrastructure things inside of Google that actually like just by nature make it hard to go and use other third-party products. Like the security requirements and legal requirements are very high, and sometimes you feel the tension of that, but in a lot of cases actually like it does really force Google to make a better product because like Workspace is an example. Like I spend all my day inside of Docs and Gmail and Sheets and looking at slides or whatever it is. When I'm not coding. And so if those products don't have AI infused, it will make my job really difficult. And so like not only knowing the Workspace team and sending them the feedback when I have comments and suggestions, but the fact that like everyone at Google is doing that, I think is such an important part of the flywheel ultimately for our customers to make sure we build, the right AI features and things for them.
Well, before you wrap up, I'm going to put you on the hot seat really quick. I have we talked earlier.
It's so cool in here right now. I don't know. The hot seat doesn't exist.
You're like, actually, compared to how hot it is out there, I'll take it.
I'll take it inside.
So we talked before about there's the AI Studio persona who would be using it, and it might just be somebody who has never ever touched any type of IDE or anything before, and it's just starting for the first time. And then on the other side, we have developers who are using anti-gravity and have years of experience and have done this before. If you had one, I guess, piece of advice for both, completely separately, I'm assuming it'd be separate, that piece of advice. And if there is one for both, that'd be the kudos to you if you could even come up with that. You get bonus points. But yeah, if you had one piece of advice on like what they should be doing now to make the most of the moment we're in with the tools that they have right now, what would it be?
Yeah, I've got one for both. I have to go after my bonus points. The thing, and I feel this for myself, and this is I put it out in the universe so that through osmosis it will come back to me as well. Is I think the model progress and the sort of agent progress and the product progress has just continued at such an unrelenting pace that like you need to keep resetting your level of ambition as you're like existing in this AI era, and sort of what you were trying to do 6 months ago that like didn't really work and you tried twice and then you're like, well, maybe I'll just ask like very simple questions to this AI model. Those things are not possible. And I feel like we instinctively as humans sort of like overtrain ourselves to like, oh, this thing wasn't possible, so I'll just keep doing it this way. And it is like it's so difficult, but it's also so important to just like keep resetting your understanding of what's actually possible. And it applies so broadly across every person using AI these days. And I fall into this trap myself all the time where like I literally have a reminder in my calendar that tells me like reset your ambition of like how much you should go and like try to ask the models to do. Because it just changes like literally every 3 months, every 2 weeks, maybe you can ask for more that you couldn't before.
I love that. It's kind of like you don't know what you don't know, right? Like you kind of always have to reset the expectations, keep on learning, keep on growing.
Yeah,
I love it.
I love it.
Okay. Well, with that, thank you so much for chatting with me. I always been crazy, and you're like the man of the hour, so I really do appreciate you taking the time. And this has been a lovely, lovely conversation. Congrats on a pretty awesome day, pretty awesome launch.
Thank you for coming, and happy year 2 at IO, and hopefully we'll have this conversation again next year.
Yeah, incredible. Sounds like a plan. Awesome.